Morning everyone, and welcome to Think Project's webinar, Manage Your Asset Infrastructure and Increase Sustainability with RAMM. Today's session is going to be an hour long. Let me just run through some quick slides with you. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to raise a hand or put the questions in the question box, and we'll pick them up at the end of the session and we'll ask the speakers for you. The session will also be recorded, and we will also email this recording to everyone after the webinar. I'd like to introduce you to our first speaker, Steve Hanks, who is responsible for sales strategy, revenue and UK market growth of Think Project's UK portfolio within architecture, engineering, construction and operation sectors. He has worked at Think Project for the last 7 months, and I'm now going to hand you over to Steve, who will introduce you to the rest of the speakers.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for taking your time to attend our UK launch for RAMM, introducing our asset management capability for provision of operational and strategic excellence into UK public and private sector asset infrastructure. For those of you that are not familiar with Think Project, we are the leading European organisation delivering digital solutions to architecture, engineering, construction and operation industry, or ACO for short. We're empowering our customers with the success to fill their plan, build, design and operate strategies around construction. As you can see in the following diagram, Think Project provides SaaS solutions for the entire industry and are at the forefront of construction requirements within that industry itself. You can see on the left-hand side, we have some document collaboration tools with our CDEs or common data environments such as TPCDE and Conclude. BIM, desktop and field management, DSite and Carniel. Our very popular CMAR product is used for product control in construction and with local government as well. And then on the right-hand side, of course, we have what we're talking about today, which is RAMM. So if we focus on the right-hand side, RAMM delivers the post-build or operate phase of infrastructure asset management. RAMM has been at the forefront of asset management capability in the Australia and New Zealand regions, or ANZ, for over 30 years, particularly dominating the New Zealand market. We are now offering RAMM in the UK. Available as of today then, RAMM as a single 100% web platform with visualization at its heart, delivers a refreshed perspective to multi-asset strategy. RAMM innovates the UK asset management software market with truly hierarchical 2D and 3D visualization, navigation, and inclusive strategic tools to close the gap between as-built and operational asset data management. Of course, as you'd expect, RAMM also excels in traditional maintenance activity such as inspections, defects, jobs, reactive and program maintenance, using host and mobile applications, bringing further efficiencies to civil engineering organisations, their customers, and public and private asset owners. What I'd now like to do is just talk through the agenda with you briefly, and then introduce our team who's going to help you cover that agenda. So as you're all here to see, we're going to introduce you to some of RAMM's capabilities, give you a preview of RAMM, let you experience his look and feel and show you what's new and some of his innovations that we're going to explore today. So we'll introduce RAMM to you and we'll show you what we believe good looks like. We're also going to show you some of our customer case studies, how RAMM is being used already to boost accurate asset condition and performance information and ability using asset data. I'll cover with you after that why RAMM, why should you be using RAMM, why should you consider RAMM, and we'll just go through a bit of an in-depth conversation about that. And then finally what we're going to do is we'll open up the call to Q&A with our experts. So we have an expert team here. We'd love you to ask us questions about RAMM and we'd love to answer those for you. If you could answer those questions in the chat panel, I'd be grateful. And we'll attempt to answer as many of those as possible in the 10 to 15 minutes remaining at the end of the call that we have for that Q&A. So let's introduce the RAMM team that are on the call today. So first of all, we have Fiona Derrick. So Fiona has over 30 years experience of using RAMM within the industry. Fiona works at Think Project now as Senior Solutions Specialist, but she's also worked as a client and a contractor using RAMM to deliver contracts and operational asset management within the industry. This gives Fiona a unique and valuable understanding and experience of delivering frontline customer experience with RAMM itself. Also presenting today is Fleur Titteridge. So Fleur is Regional Sales Manager at ANZ at Think Project. She's been in the industry for over 15 years, works closely with public asset owners and contractors, and leads the sales and marketing functions for the ANZ region. Fleur also sits on the New Zealand Board of Directors for the Institute of Public Works Engineering Australasia. She's an avid tech enthusiast who has published in industry journals and presents on technology innovations that are reshaping our industry. As Fleur is located in New Zealand, and as we all know, it's very late in New Zealand right now, Fleur will join us by pre-recorded video today. Myself, I'm Sales Director Asset Management at Think Project. I've previously spent over 30 years delivering asset management solutions to the UK and globally, specifically within public sector, civil engineering and related stakeholders. My passion is to share a collaborative digital experience with the eco sector, public sector and private sector industries to realise the success of the solutions that I represent. As of today, this includes working with you to deliver RAMM to the UK for your success, managing your infrastructure strategies. And last but certainly not least, can I introduce Chris Jenner. So Chris is our senior consultant specialising in asset management. Chris has over 10 years experience working with asset and related spatial data in both public and private sector. Chris brings a wealth of asset management and specifically asset data analytics understanding to a very experienced team. Now, I'm sure you're all dying to see what RAMM looks like. I'd like to introduce RAMM to you and introduce a RAMM preview to you by handing over to Chris, who's now going to introduce RAMM to you and show you what good looks like for the first part of our agenda. Chris, I'm now going to hand over control to you.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you everybody for joining us today. As Steve said, I'm going to give you a brief introduction of what RAMM is and what it feels like. What we're looking at here is our typical landing page. So straight away, we can see that it's map focused. The map is standard on loader, and we can see from here, we've got a number of assets loaded in the middle. So we can manage our assets and asset register from the map, as well as things like inspections, jobs, and assessments. Today's demo is going to focus primarily on how the assets look and feel, and some of the functions we've got to manage those. So at this level here, we can see there is assets clustered in this area in the center of the map, and there's 31 individual assets loaded on the map at the moment. They're in clusters, and that's by design. Instead of trying to load complicated geometry at this level, it allows us to efficiently move around the map and zoom in without any lag. So we're going to move into an area of Bath here slowly. And as we get closer, we can see we eventually get to a level where that geometry becomes more visible and we can see the complex geometry. And what we're looking at here is with the purple boundary is our carriageway asset class. And we've got our individual point asset class, which is the gullies. RAMM can also maintain linear assets as well, so we could have a linear asset data set on here. Up in the left, we can see that those are the assets that are loaded. And RAMM works in the same way as a traditional GIS, where we have layers and layer visibility. So the gullies are on top currently, and the carriageways below. We can see here that we have carriageways by road class, and this is a function of RAMM that allows you to create multiple layers from a single asset group. So we've got our carriageway plane data set here in purple, but we can switch now to the carriageway by road class. Obviously, we can't see it because it's underneath those two. So if we were to turn these two off, we can now see that that same data set is styled by the data that's in the table behind it. Very quickly, we can see where our A roads, B roads, and C roads are on the map. We also have a suite of base maps within RAMM. I can show you those briefly. What we're looking at here is Ordnance Survey's WMS feed. So RAMM supports WMS feeds. So if you have your own corporate WMS feed, you can put that in fairly easy. But we've also got more familiar to users. We've got Google feeds, Google satellite feeds, and Google with labels. We also have a street view function, but before we do that, let's go to somewhere a little bit more interesting. Let's have a look at the Royal Crescent in Bath, and let's switch to the gullies. We can see the pin here that shows where we've searched. This is Royal Crescent, and the map is interactive as you'd expect. So we can click on these here and get basic information about that gully. And this is configured by the user to ensure that at a click of a button, we've got the information we need. If we just put the carriageway layer back on again, we can see when we click on the carriageways, that's a different selection of data. And again, that's configured by the user. So focusing now on the gullies, and go into our street view, we can drag and drop into here, and we can navigate around and look at our assets through street view. So here we can see we've got our asset again, and it's interactive in the same way that our map is. So we get the same information from here, and we can see quite clearly this is linked to that gully there. We can see more information, and this blade pops out here. It's the same gully, but the expanded information. So this is all the information that's recorded against the asset that I want to show in this view. Here we've got our attachments. In this case, it's just an image of a gully, but we can have external URLs, we can have PDF documents, limited options there for that. We've got grayed out ones which are configured, can't be changed. We've got extra information such as ward boundary. And we can see these are built of pre-configured lookups. This is to ensure that if somebody makes any changes, it's consistent with the rest of the data set. We've got another one of those locked fields at the bottom here, and this is a calculate field. We can see that this gully is 122 years old. That doesn't look right to me, so let's change it to 1980 and hit save. And we can see how quickly that changes, and that's calculated to 42 years of age instead. On this left-hand side here, RAMM has an asset hierarchy viewer. So at this stage, we've just got the gully shown, but by navigating to the parent asset, and in this case, it's the National Street Gazetteer, we can click on that and see all the children of the National Street Gazetteer asset in our system. So for this USRN, we can see carriageways, we can see the construction, interest, and special designation layers from the NSG, but we can also see gullies. We can expand this by navigating across these here. These are all the individual gullies then that are linked to the Royal Crescent in Bath. And we can switch through these fairly easy. You can see how quick that's loading. We have worked with GeoPlace, making the most of their new data via feed. So what this National Street Gazetteer layer is that live feed in use in RAMM. So we can drop out of here now, and we'll go back to the map. Just turn off these gullies, and let's turn on the carriageway layer again. So as you'd expect with a map function, RAMM comes with some spatial functions as well, and we can quite easily select by rectangle. So if I was to drag and drop, and we can get a selection shown here instantly on the map, and we can see that there, and it follows up here. We can use these selections to do multiple different actions, things like potentially might want to raise jobs and inspections, or we can use it to update the data within the grid view. So back at the grid view, we can see Margaret Buildings happen to be in that selection here. And this grid view is the total table view of all of the carriageway assets. So we're going to cancel that selection from here, but we could have used that selection to make changes to the asset. We can see the map view and the colours from that map layer have corresponded to here. So really quickly, we can see this is an A road, this is a C road, and these are unclassified. We can use the action functions within the grid to look at summaries of that data, so total asset count, total area, replacement costs. The graph view allows you to very quickly produce graphs on the fly. So this is here looking at an urban and rural split by length of carriageway. And also, if we've made multiple selections within here, we can use the add assessments and add dispatches in bulk. So we've seen carriageway asset classes in RAMM, and as Steve said earlier, it's not just limited to that. We are a fluid system that supports other asset classes. So now we're going to load in some parks assets. So we can see how quick these are as well. We've loaded in our park asset. We'll load in our park seating. Let's load in some walkways and some trees. And this is looking at Royal Victoria Park. and they've instantly loaded in with the configured styling that's saved against them. Earlier, for the gully, we had a look at the hierarchy. So in this case, we can have a look at how that is built in the back end of RAMM, the Hierarchy Manager. So if we go to the park within here, and this has been preset up before this, we can see the park is the adult and these are the children. If we go back to the map, click on our Royal Victoria Park asset, navigate to the asset hierarchy, we can see that within here now, these are already set up. So our seats are child assets, trees are child assets, the same as our walkways. We can see the asset detail for Royal Victoria Park. We've got far more attachments within here. As I said previously, we've got URLs and we've got some images. We've got that familiar drop down, but we've also got free text, and we can see how this is different to the other assets we've seen, as that's been designed specifically by a user. Turn this off. And then the last thing I want to show you is how simple and easy it is to add assets within RAMM. We've loaded up our tree layer in advance. So using this function, we can come to the bottom left. We can select our geometry type, and this time we've got point, line, and polygon. We're going to select point. We can select our tree. So we're going to go for the tree there and click next. This is our pre-built form. I'm making the most of the functions in our user-defined tables. We can select our maple tree, and we can see that these have pulled through automatically by lookups. We can select Parks and Recreation, we can select Park and Royal Victoria Park, hit save, and within 30 seconds, we've added a brand new asset that can now have assessments, jobs, and inspections against it. So I'm going to hand back to Steve, and Steve is going to give you a use case demo from New Zealand. So thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Chris. Fantastic. So thank you, Chris, for that. And hopefully you've now seen a very brief preview of how different RAMM is and how RAMM is very much a visualized user interface. Of course, Chris has only given you a very short preview of RAMM, and we'll look at some more detail very shortly in the video I'm about to show you. But hopefully you're experiencing that it's very driven from the UI. It's extremely fast, and it's very, very easy to interrogate data. Very recently, I've watched Chris and Fiona show me how they can interrogate different data by row condition, by asset class, by some kind of very random requests, and it very quickly displays that data on the screen using the interface that Chris has shown you. So it really does bring asset data to the fore very, very quickly and simply. Right, so what I'd now like to do is to introduce Fleur, and Fleur will show you by video, will show you the video of 3 waters, showing water assets being managed by RAMM. Be very familiar to you with regard to what Chris has just done, but we'll show you some more inclusive detail and more additional detail about how we can manage different asset classes within RAMM.
In collaboration with Tauro Alliance, we've designed and implemented a new asset hierarchy in RAMM in alignment with the New Zealand Asset Metadata Standards to effectively manage and maintain 3 waters and water treatment facilities. Using the Township of Pahiatua, we'll demonstrate this in RAMM. As always, map layers can easily be filtered. You can show various parts of the network, highlighted, assessed, viewed, and what you're seeing here are just some examples. When we zoom out a little, you can see it's not just Pahiatua that we've modelled, but all areas that make up the district. This is showing the individual valves, the pipes, and the access chambers. And as we've got the thematic rules applied, we can see the difference between the wastewater and the freshwater supply. Zooming in, we can see a manifold valve located outside a property. There's an access chamber, and we can see the various wastewater and potable water networks. Over in the grid, we can view all the asset data for the pipe selected. As we look at the water treatment facility in the asset hierarchy, we can see a range of different asset types, including the likes of control systems, HVAC, mechanical, and storage. If we select the surge tank, we can see it highlighted on the map. As this contains multiple assets and components, we can navigate the asset hierarchy for those assets and to show its physical location on the map. Using the grid, we can generate graphs to analyze the data across various attributes. For example, the installer for the valves, and of course you can filter and sort data accordingly. If we zoom out, we can see this clustering on the map, which shows that we're actually viewing thousands of assets, all of which are loading in near real time as we move around the map. As we pan across to another town just north of Pahiatua, this shows we're not just able to view at a low level, but also on a macro scale as well. So now we're looking across the entire Tararua district to view the various townships within the region. And then, of course, we can zoom back into view, for example, the oxidation ponds that make up part of their wastewater system. If we return to that pump station here, you can see the asset hierarchy we just showed in the static view and how we can navigate through that hierarchy to view different assets. So after we did the implementation with the Alliance, we carried out a case study, and here's what we found. So there was improved data visibility, data quality and compliance, which resulted in improved response times, levels of service, quality and cost. The Alliance now have a holistic view of all critical infrastructure, both transport and water, which produces powerful data insights for evidence-based decisions, resulting in better outcomes. We structured the asset hierarchy in alignment with the New Zealand Asset Metadata Standards and also aligned with the Three Waters Code of Practice. In a time and motion study, RAMM was 10 times faster when compared with the existing asset management system. The Alliance are now planning the migration and planning for the rest of their other asset classes, including property and facilities, which will result in RAMM being their true single source of truth for all asset data.
Thank you, Blair. I hope you all have found that insight into Three Waters useful. As you probably experienced there, you're starting to get an impression now of how fast, how insightful RAMM can be with the data and how we're working that through the visualized user interface. So not only are Three Waters capitalizing on RAMM's visual capability, but have made extensive proven efficiencies in the use of their asset data using the insights that RAMM has provided for them. For us, it's really important to understand that the UK vocabulary regarding data and digital insights or similar statements can only be achieved from a system that has true flexibility to absorb and manage that data directly via smart, connected, or static asset data. Too often, asset stakeholders receive simplistic as-built data at the end of a potentially lengthy construction lifecycle. So sometimes we've seen that up to 5 and 10 years when people cannot drive the insights from that data before then, or start thinking strategically about that data because they're waiting for that to become available. So whether that's buildings, highways, or other asset classes, it doesn't matter. So this then is a digital gap and therefore an efficiency between construction and operation that now can be closed with RAMM. So I'm shortly going to show you another short video that Fleur will help us with, and she'll demonstrate to you RAMM's ability to manage and use schematics and BIM data to simplify your interaction with assets in a completely new way for the UK market. Fleur demonstrates navigating asset data using a successful customer proof of concept BIM model within RAMM to highlight RAMM's 2D and 3D schematic navigator. So here, you'll be able to see how you can simplify your asset identification and navigation using a BIM model.
Some of your multi-network data will already be in RAMM with the correct metadata, such as your road assets and your parks and reserve assets. We're now bringing asset, facility and network data into RAMM, either from schematics or building information modelling data. We can use BIM data to populate the asset information that can then be used further during management and maintenance. We recently performed a proof of concept for Auckland Transport, for bridges and for the Britomart Transportation Hub. Here is the Rimager Road Bridge. We created this model from BIM data that Auckland Transport supplied us. For this, we created UDTs for its component parts and grouped these within the 3 main areas of the bridge. Note that this is in RAM, but it's in alpha, so you won't see this in production after the presentation. Notice that when the model is moved, we do lose some clarity and just see black outlines. This helps keep the screen really easy to move around, even on less powerful machines. When I select the outer beam, I can see its details. Now, isn't that process far simpler than finding the correct grid and then finding the correct outer beam asset? There isn't a huge amount of information in here as it's a proof of concept, but you can see that it's a beam type of concrete octagonal hollow core. It is beam number 4, and notice this section here, RDS. This refers to a reference design system, which is really helpful when we get to Hierarchy Manager. In simple terms, an RDS takes information like this and converts it into information like this with the hierarchies created. And from here, we can add an inspection or a dispatch. Also notice that we are told we're looking at the outer beams view. This is used to identify items that we select, such as the highlighted cube 117 and the timber post 114.
So thank you again, Fleur, for demonstrating that 3D model. Of course, we're giving you a very quick glimpse into RAMM's capability to manage that 3D data and visualize that 3D data. But as you could see, that was being navigated around in RAMM and just using the standard asset register to pop the blades up on the left-hand side with the relevant information. So why RAMM? As you can probably see on the screen right now, RAMM is a comprehensive system that's been proven over 30 years in other regions that we're now bringing into the UK and is available to you today. RAMM manages multi-asset infrastructure, improves your digital efficiency, and uses a spatial 2D, 3D schematic interface. We're using connected, smart, and static asset data to improve the accuracy and outcomes for all stakeholders, asset condition maintenance and sustainability for short and long term. You can see a few pieces of the RAMM capability and functionality up on the screen right there, such as our user-definable asset tables.
Sorry,
maybe a bit.
Just to jump in, sorry. If you're sharing your slides, we can't see them at the moment, I don't think.
My apologies. Bear with me a second. Can you see them now, Chris?
Yeah, I can see them now.
Apologies, everybody. I'll just go back through that. So just explaining through why you should choose RAMM. The slide here really just underpinning what I'm saying there, that RAMM is a proven system. It manages multi-asset class infrastructure, improves your digital efficiency and sustainability over the long and the short term. Now you can see there on the screen the various different functionalities and capabilities of RAMM that we've talked about throughout today. It's quite important then that we understand what it can do and what it will do. This is just a short introduction to RAMM. And hopefully you've understood through the short videos and the demonstration that we've provided that RAMM can manage very complex data in a very simple way. So we're driving it through visualization. We have the hierarchy manager that enables us to manage very complex assets in a very simple way and help you with that. So RAMM uniquely makes asset insights available more quickly to owners and stakeholders. RAMM also allows the ingestion and easy use of schematics, 3D BIM and other engineering product data from the civil engineering side of the as-built process to further empower your end users with a visualized simplicity. RAMM will automate, present, hand over and further the use of additional data, typically residing with CDEs, common data environments such as our own Conclude CDE, for example, or contract management systems that are being used between contract within contracts by civil engineering companies and local government organisations, for example, such as CMAR, during the as-built process for the end client. So all of that becomes available sooner. It leverages multiple new efficiencies and insights when using RAMM this way, and it really smooths the path to post-build operate phase for everybody. The sooner we can understand, strategize, and manage the asset information, the easier it is to continue through the operate phase. As we know, more effective asset management is a bridge to a circular or the circular economy, with construction stakeholders, and the resulting digitisation achieves higher sustainability within our shared industry for all of us involved. BIM can often feel very complex, as we know. Well, as you see with RAMM's BIM navigation, and we did give you a very brief tour of it, and its hierarchy tools, RAM steps up to allow you to manage and navigate complex asset data very simply. In addition, RAM's ability to ingest IoT data through its inbuilt API can be used in collaboration to widen your experience with automation using smart infrastructure where you have that available. Okay, so from our perspective, that's all from us. Very brief introduction to RAM, as I mentioned. Bring a really fresh new approach to UK asset management, one I haven't seen during my career. We haven't covered RAM in its entirety at all. There's lots more we could tell you. We could spend hours on RAM, of course, but we're not going to do that today. What we'd like to do is, we'd like to have shown you its spatial, schematic, and 3D visuals and its fast ability to locate and interrogate data, bringing that new interface to the UK. But then encourage you to speak with us about what else we can support you with, what else RAM can do, what we can offer, what outcomes and efficiencies we can drive through RAM for your organisation. So I hope you'll agree that what you've seen today starts to give you the impression that RAM closes that construction to operation gap and furthers the opportunity for digital infrastructure efficiency here in the UK and enhanced sustainability with the digitised data concept around data insights for all stakeholders. So now it's your turn. I'd like to open the webinar to our panel. So I'd like to invite our panel all to come onto video if you're not already, please. And we'll go through the questions. And Liz, if I could ask you if you wouldn't mind filling the questions for us before we close the session. One more thing, up on the screen now, you should be seeing a QR code. If you do scan that QR code with your phone, that will take you to a contact details page where you can get in contact details with us. And we'll happily call you. We can arrange a video or short visits to circulate around your organisation with regard to RAM. A few additional details about that after we finish the Q&A. So at that point, Liz, can I hand over to you to manage the questions?
Hi everyone, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
So to start off the Q&A, I have a question here. We saw a lot of visuals, a lot of assets visualized in the Free Waters videos. Can assets be loaded in bulk, and what formats can be used for loading new asset data?
Okay, thanks, Liz. Fiona, can you take that one?
Yes, I will. Thanks, Steve. So RAM can bulk load data either through a CSV or from the map as a shapefile. We can load the data in, link it between a defined user-defined table and the columns coming in on the shapefile and load that in. And the same validation checks apply whether it's through the map or through the bulk load or through adding a single asset as Chris just demoed before. Thank you.
And I've got another one here. Does the hierarchy manager mean that a bench always has to be a child of the park in a hierarchy, or could you still have a bench on a street, for example?
Fiona, I'm going to back to your superior knowledge again.
Yeah, happy for okay, so that's on. Yes. So as you saw in the hierarchy, I didn't demo how that is built live, but yeah, whatever you want to set as the parent asset, you could go down further on that bench. If you wanted to put the bolts as individual assets, you could build down further and further. So a good example is a street light. You could have a column, the lamp, and the bulb going on.
I've got another one here. Do asset classes come with pre-configured data structures?
I can take that one, Steve, if you're okay with that.
Sure.
So yes, we can have standard data structures, but we can also create tables to match exactly what you're currently using with the configured drop downs, and that means that the language is kept the same for your crews working with the same set of data, and it's more transferable and it's easily used, and it's the information that you're familiar with, so you're not having to get used to a new interface, a new data structure. You've got that same data structure, it's just the interface that's new. Thank you.
And can they also be altered or customised?
Absolutely, everything can be customised. So yeah, we're into that. Thank you.
I've got another one here. Fleur mentioned asset classes being defined by New Zealand standards. Does this mean that is how things are defined for the UK?
No, it doesn't. No, absolutely not. So RAM is, in respect of the data, is localized and ambivalent to the geography that it sits within. So what Fleur is referring to there is they've had a specific specification that they need to drive for the New Zealand process. But equally, if we had that in the UK, we could do that here as well. So it's just the nature of RAM's configurability in terms of its asset class data. It's pretty open. So as Fiona's already mentioned, it can be a template for a specific asset class. So let's call it a tree or a park or a section of carriageway. We can manipulate that, or you can manipulate that as users to any asset class that you want to reflect. So whether that's basically if you want to record pencil cases, for example, in RAM, you could absolutely do that. But then if you wanted to default to a UK specification as well and have an asset class table and other tables that are specific to that legislation or specification, you could also achieve that with RAM. So it's very open and customizable to that.
Thank you, Steve. You mentioned GeoPlace. Any other notable integrations?
It's a good point, actually. I would say no to notable integrations, but on a positive way, and that's because RAM has an open API standard. So we use Swagger for our API. The API is not specifically designed for individual products or partners. It's open and therefore leaves us able to integrate with any product. So whether it's a CIM, a financial system, another work system, or something else, we can use our API to integrate with those. So it's very, very open, two-way, etc. It's not configured to anything specific.
Thank you. I've got another one here. How does RAM aid wastewater collection?
Who'd like to answer that one? Fiona, are you more experienced in that than us, perhaps?
No, not about wastewater. Certainly we're doing water meter readings out of RAM, which is again done in Tararua in the example that Fleur showed you, but we not that I'm aware of for wastewater. So good question though. Thank you.
Just to elaborate on that though, we've seen in the New Zealand demo, we had pipelines in there. So the assets can be loaded into RAM, they can be linear, whatever asset class you want to build. It can be done within RAM.
Yeah, it's important with whether it's water, wastewater, any other asset class. A key component of RAM is for you to be able to configure asset class data, whether that's standardized fields, text fields, calculated fields, etc., around the requirement of the asset class that you have. So very much, if we don't have wastewater experience right now, we could certainly look at that. And I would be very confident that that's something that we could fulfill in the future.
I've got another one here. Has this been used or could be used on an operational rail network?
Yes, is the short answer to all the questions. There's no reason. Rail is without trying to sound a bit trite, rail is an asset like any other rail, right? It has its specialisms, of course, but it is an asset, and there are assets around the rail infrastructure that need managing. So very much we have within the organisation, we have the experience through EPCLAS CDE, for example, of managing large rail organisations in Germany and through the Nordics. So we have already the experience of managing that data and that capability within the organisation, and that could be moved into RAM as an operate phase through an asset infrastructure management model to achieve that in the future, yes.
Okay, great. Lastly, what kind of reporting dashboards are available with RAM?
Fiona or Chris?
Steve showed, you can integrate RAM with Microsoft BI, so doing that through the APIs. We've got graphs on the fly, which Chris demoed how easy it is to switch between the two or bulk load and record those with a different package of information. And currently still in the pipeline, the ability for users to be able to create their own dashboards based on dragging out widgets. And so therefore it's much more customizable instead of having a fixed set of dashboards that everybody's presented with. Thank you.
Thanks, Fiona. And to add to that, I think you probably saw Chris did a very, very simple graph during his demo. And for the speed of the demo, we needed to do something very, very simple. He's just taken some simple data, pressed the button, and produced a graph. With regard to that, you can obviously use that data and you can manage that data and output that data in the format that you need and produce those graphs very, very quickly in a much more complex way if you wish to do that, and in different formats. For the purpose of the demo, we kept it simple. But yeah, absolutely, you can exploit that into some more presentation detail. And RAMM has a whole host of inbuilt reports and reporting capability, which you can use either from a kind of end user level, and even has a dedicated SQL manager for allow you to do simplistic and even complicated SQL reporting capability out of RAMM for users that wish to do that, and has some SQL management and SQL help inbuilt into RAMM to make that simple. Even people like me, maybe, who don't really want to get into the, the infinite loop of coding out in SQL.
So I've just had another question come in. Does RAMM have configurable business process and KPIs?
Yes, I'll take that one. Yes, so the KPIs can be set to at a minute level, so certainly around things like responding to a traffic signal fault, where you want a response within 2 hours, but you can then also set through the same interface the ability to respond to a pothole on a local road within 5 days. So that's completely configurable around the asset class, in fact the defect, where the call has come from, and then what defines as being a response. So whether it's having somebody on site, which is absolutely fine for a traffic signal, or whether the repair has actually occurred, which is where you want to be for a pothole. So completely configurable, and then that can again be used for reporting and made and visualized with graphs, the same sort of graphs through the same interface that Chris just demoed before.
Fantastic, thanks, Fiona. And to add to that, I think, as you may have just caught sight through the demo as we go through the different asset classes, the business process modeling principle through RAMM and its ability to manage different contract operations is quite concise and quite easy, but definitely is there to enable the different styles that we would appreciate. So you'll have seen that we've looked at, in the demo, there were some bits and pieces on telco, there was the obvious or relatively obvious UK highways and parks, also water, and we've also been managing things like facilities and manufacturing in RAMM as well, with some really complex asset componentry, specifically in manufacturing, but also in power and utilities. Now, all of those have very different business process models in terms of the operations and how they work with the various stakeholders and contracts around their business. And of course, RAMM can be comprehensively configured to manage that business process and the KPIs within those different types of organisations.
Thank you, Steve. I've got a question for Chris here. Chris mentioned data via from GeoPlace. Does RAMM interface with NSG data, and will it take feeds from data via when available?
Yeah, thank you for that question. In short, yes, that's what we were looking at there. So that is a live feed through our APIs. And then that's exactly what we're looking at. And you'll see that it wasn't just the street lines data set. You didn't see at that time, but we've also pulled through the ESU lines, special designation information. And if you use the hierarchy viewer, you're able to see for each individual USRN section what designation and interest information are linked to that.
Thank you, Chris. I think we've just got one more question now. Can RAMM manage fleet? Yes.
Thanks. Yes, so you can configure fleet. Obviously, it moves around a lot, so you'd be associated to a depot, but as well as the fleet entry, you could then record things as children, or as so you've got things like insurance claim, fuel consumption, daily inspections. You could relate a number of different items there, and then obviously that fleet can then be claimed for if you're using the dispatch labour plant material sort of options. Yeah, certainly we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona. Does anyone else have anything else to add before we sign off today's webinar? No?
All good.
From me now.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining us today. Think Project actually have another webinar with us on the 20th of July, led by Valeria, who's their lead consultant. So if you want to sign up to that as well, that will be over our social media, and emails will probably come through to you also about registering. Thank you to our panelists today as well. It was a great webinar, and I think everyone enjoyed it as they asked lots of questions, which is always good. But yeah, thank you everyone for coming today. And oh, I think I've just received another question actually. Oh, they're just saying thank you to you.
Great. Yeah, I'd like to thank everybody on the call as well, and obviously taking your valuable time this morning to dial into this webinar and listen to us present what is, as I say, a very brief preview of RAMM's capability. So if you'd like to see more, please use the QR code. If you're an existing customer, you can call your account managers. There is more information about RAMM available on our website, www.thinkproject.com. As we mentioned, any of us here will be happy to provide any more questions, answers, collateral about RAMM. Come and see you and talk about RAMM, albeit virtual or in real life in the near future. So thank you to Liz for hosting as well. We really appreciate that, and we look forward to hearing from all of you in the very near future.
Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.